Welcome to FootballGameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our Canadian Football League Week 1 preview between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now let's size up both teams in this matchup, starting with Hamilton.
Zach Collaros is ready to lead the Ticats into action versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and he inherits a very good offensive attack with C.J. Gable in the backfield and a bevy of big-body wide receivers like Greg Ellingson, Bakari Grant, and Giovanni April, who's 6'3", 220. Luke Tasker figures to see a lot of looks this game as Andy Fantuz is out this week due to injury, and all eyes will be on that offensive line as they were banged up in 2013 and enter this season still having issues with health, as 4 guys are on the injured list already. And that's something to monitor moving forward. Defensively, much is expected from a defense that ranked last in sacks in the CFL. They added defensive tackle Ted Laurent from the Edmonton Eskimos to help stop the bleeding on the inside, but they're fine on the edges with Eric Norwood and company, and I think their linebacking core with Rico Murray, Siamani Lawrence, and Frederick Pleases, as well as rookie Bo Landry, is the most underrated group in the CFL. The secondary is solid, and I'm a big fan of Brandon Stewart, who comes over from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this year, and Craig Butler, who shows that tremendous range from sideline to sideline. The reigning Grey Cup champions enter the 2014 season looking to get back to the Grey Cup in Vancouver, and with quarterback Darian Durant at the helm, he's always going to have them in contention. Now, missing this year are 2 key pieces to last year's title run, running back Corey Sheets and wide receiver Weston Dressler, as both guys want to pursue opportunities in the NFL. The good news is that virtually the entire offensive line returns intact, and they are still stout at the receiver position. And keep an eye on rookie wide receiver Alex Pierce-Chowski, who is a big target at 6'5", 220 pounds. Keith Tosin and Anthony Allen look to share the running back load this year to take some of the pressure off Durant in the passing game. Defensively, they lose pieces up front with McElveen and Shalogan gone from this year's roster, but the core of that defensive line still returns with John Chick, Ricky Foley, and Terrius George. Defensive end David Lee looks to have a breakout season as well, and an aggressive unit spearheads the second level with Shamari Williams and Weldon Brown. Both are outstanding players, and I like how they use Tyrone Brackenridge, the safety, as an enforcer on delayed blitzes. In the secondary, the talkative yet talented Dwight Anderson leads a group who last year gave up the fewest passing touchdowns in the CFL en route to having the best pass defense in the game. Now, here are some coaching points for both teams in this. Arrows on the move, arrows on the move, arrows on the move. Until that offensive line shows they can hold their own versus pressures, stunts, and blitzes, keep him on the move, keep that pocket going left to right, and that way you can have some success. And don't be afraid to send extra at Darian Durant. You want to force him to hold that football, to hesitate before getting that football out to those targets, and I think that's how they can play winning defense. And in the special teams department, Brandon Banks is one of the best returners in the game, and he has to make an impact to flip that field position to give these guys a half a field to work with on offense. And for the Riders in this ball game, I would keep it inside in the running game. I think they can have some success running downhill, that inside zone, those gap plays, those power plays inside. I think they can have some success against the Ticats' interior defensive line. And I would stay alert defensively for those Gable screens. They love to get C.J. Gable out on the perimeter in the screen game. Stay alert, otherwise he can gas you big time in the passing game. And you have to maintain that physicality versus the wide receivers. This is a big time matchup. I think they actually match up well versus the receiving core of the Ticats. So this should be a great matchup, great chess match, but they have to stay physical throughout the course of the game if they want to have some success. The key matchup in this ballgame will be the Ticats linebackers versus the running game of Saskatchewan. The key in any football game is to make your opponent one-dimensional. If they can stop the running game without Corey Sheets back there, I think this bodes well for the Ticats winning the ballgame, because again, I like the matchups on the flanks. I think on the perimeter, they match up very well, both teams, with each other's receiving core, and if they can stop the run, the Ticats have a great chance of knocking off Saskatchewan. The X factor for the Ticats will be their ability to pick up the blitz, and that's both at the offensive line level as well as in the backfield with Zach Collaros and C.J. Gable. They have to be able to recognize and pick up the blitz if they want to have success. And for the Riders is Keith Tosin in the backfield. If he can just bring enough to the table running the football, he had a solid preseason, but again, he doesn't have to beat Corey Sheets. Just bring enough to the table to help take some of the pressure off the passing game. I think that bodes well for that offense as a whole. Now let's go inside our CFL fantasy football huddle as it pertains to this matchup, who you should start and who you should sit. I would start Darian Durant and Todd Smith. I think they're going to find themselves being a great 1-2 combination this year. Even without Weston Dressler, I think Smith will be the focal point of the passing game this week. And I would also start CJ Gable and Luke Tasker. Both guys are dangerous after the catch, whether it be the short passing game or the screen game. Both guys will do a lot of damage to any defense, let alone Saskatchewan. I would also start the Hamilton Tiger Cats defense. I think they'll do a great job because of their special teams unit and Brandon Banks. Now, here's some guys you probably should sit this week on your fantasy football roster. That's Keith Tosin, Chris Getzliff, and Zach Caleros. I don't think either one of these guys will have an outstanding day. They'll have a good day enough to help their team win, but not numbers-wise as far as fantasy is concerned. I would also sit Greg Ellingson of the Ticats. I think the Roughriders will do a great job of being physical with those receivers and keeping those guys at bay. And I would also sit the Roughriders defense and special teams. I don't think they have the impact players on special teams anymore, so that right there would knock them down a couple of notches as far as fantasy is concerned. I like Saskatchewan in this ball game. Again, football is played in the trenches, and I like their offensive line as well as their defensive line. A lot of those guys return intact, the core of that unit, of both units, and I think that's enough to give Durant time in the pocket and create holes for Tosin in the running game. And on defense, I think they'll do a great job in frustrating Zach Caleros. So I like Saskatchewan to win this ball game versus the Tiger Cats at home. And don't forget to tune in live every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for Football Game Plan's Road to the Grey Cup podcast as we break down every game on the CFL schedule, give you fantasy football advice, and also bring you all of the news, notes, and tidbits from around the Canadian Football League. And again, that's every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Football Game Plan Radio Network located at blogtalkradio.com/footballgameplan. And I also want to give a huge shout out to CFL Fan Forums for always showing Football Game Plan support.